Hi, I'm Rory Verrett. Welcome to Sovereign Path, the career show for purpose-driven leaders. I'm an executive coach and executive recruiter with over 20 years of experience recruiting for companies in professional sports, entertainment, tech, media, sustainability, and the nonprofit sector. It's February, which means it's interview season. In case you hadn't noticed, the recruiting calendar typically follows the academic calendar. That means that companies start recruiting in January and February, and then again in September and October. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule, but this is the usual schedule for recruiting. And today, I want to talk to you about what you're getting wrong about your resume. Let me say something that makes a lot of very smart people uncomfortable. Most candidates dramatically underinvest in interviewing. Not the resume, not the LinkedIn profile, interviewing. And at every level in your career, that blind spot is costly. Your resume gets you in the door, but that's about it. So many people focus way too much on resumes, paying upwards of $1,000 on resume writers when your resume is going to get screened by an AI tool. I want to scream this from the mountaintops. Your interview is what matters the most in your job search. So on this episode, I want to walk you through 3 real scenarios I've seen recently. Different people, different contexts, same lesson. Your resume might get you in the room, but your interview is what decides whether you stay in the process or quietly disappear. First scenario. On a recent executive search I was running, there was only one candidate who reached out and asked me to help him prepare for his first round interview. Let me be clear about something. That request is completely appropriate. It is well within the bounds of what a candidate can ask an executive recruiter. And when someone asks, I always take it seriously. Now, here's how this usually works on my side of the table. If I see a candidate who is clearly off the mark, misreading the role, misunderstanding the brief, or telling the wrong story, I will often step in and offer guidance before they walk into an interview unprepared. But if a candidate is doing reasonably well, I may not spend extra time unless they ask for it. Not because they don't deserve it, but because I assume they are busy with their day jobs. They're leading teams, they're juggling real responsibility, and I assume they've interviewed before. In this case, the candidate asked. So I gave him direct, pointed feedback, what to emphasize, what to tighten, what to stop saying altogether, where his story was good, but not landing as clearly as it needed to. That kind of coaching doesn't change who you are. It does change how clearly the decision makers understand you. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The candidates who don't ask for help don't get that edge. And in a finalist pool of candidates, that edge is often the difference between advancing and being told they're going in a different direction. Second scenario. This one involved a coaching client of mine interviewing for an executive role at a major sports organization. Before she was even invited in, she had to answer a series of written essay-style questions. These weren't box-checking questions. They were designed to test how she thinks, how she leads, and whether she understands the business she was trying to enter. Her background was primarily nonprofit, which meant the real risk wasn't that she wasn't qualified. The risk was that the interviewers wouldn't immediately see how her experience translated. So we worked through her responses carefully. Then we focused on something most candidates never do well on their own: translation. We took her nonprofit leadership experience and explicitly connected it to the realities of a professional sports organization: revenue, stakeholders, public visibility, governance, culture, pressure. Nothing about her experience changed. What changed was how legible it became, because interviews are not about listing what you've done. They're about helping people recognize why you're relevant to their world. Third scenario. This one is more common than people admit. This client had been at the same company for 17 years. She'd been in her current role for 5 years. She was promoted multiple times, widely respected, a genuinely strong leader. But when I asked her about her interview experience, she paused and said she'd probably done 3 or 4 interviews in the last 10 years. That should make you nervous if that's you. Not because she's not capable or you're not capable, but because interviewing is a skill. And like any skill, it gets rusty when you don't use it. She hadn't interviewed in years. The structure of executive interviews had changed. The expectations had shifted. And she was relying on instincts that were built in a very different moment in her career. So as part of our coaching, we slowed everything down. We walked through the anatomy of modern executive interviews, how to structure answers, how to be concise without underselling, how to connect strategy, leadership, and outcomes in a way that actually lands with the panel. We ran 3 practice sessions. When she walked into that interview, she wasn't just confident, she was controlled, grounded, clear. And she got feedback the same day that she was moving to the final round. Here's the part people miss. She went from roughly 300 candidates to 10 based on a resume, but she went from 10 to 3 based on her interview. That's how much the interview matters. At senior levels, everyone left in the process is qualified. Everyone has pedigree. Everyone has great experience. The interview is where decisions get made. And here's the part that should create some urgency. Every year, I see extraordinary leaders lose roles they were absolutely capable of doing because they treated the interview like a formality, or worse, like something they could wing. Meanwhile, someone slightly less qualified, but far more prepared in the interview, walks out with the offer. If you are interviewing for a role that matters to you, one that changes your trajectory, your compensation, your platform, you cannot afford to treat the interview as an afterthought. If you haven't interviewed in years, if you're transitioning sectors, if the stakes are really high, or if you simply don't want to leave the outcome to chance, this is where you need to get serious. If you want help preparing for your interview, real preparation, not generic advice, you can reach out to me directly. I'm at rory.verrett@protegesearch.com. Interview coaching is one of the highest leverage things I do with clients, and it's often the difference between being a finalist and being the one who gets the call for the job. Your resume may get you in the door, but your interview is what decides whether that door closes behind you or opens into the next chapter of your career.